Review. Uh, Hello, everyone. This is the September 13th, 2022 meeting of the the Engineering Committee for the Duluth Community Service District. It ends up being traffic day. Last committee meeting in front of you, I think. Are there any comments on that, or can I have a motion to approve? Okay, I'm second that. So that's approved. And we are almost immediately on our favorite topic. Buena Vista.
Well, Buena Vista, we're actually.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you. Do we have any comments? Okay, none in the room and none online. Thank you very much for reminding me of them. So now we're on to.
All right, so Buena Vista, we've actually, I'm not gonna sound like a broken record this time, so I do have some news on this one, so that's the good part. So actually, there was a lot of activity this last month, and the biggest thing was Jim and I, Jim called a meeting with our environmental firm, Rincon, the firm. I kind of got the meeting went favorably, basically, but the biggest news we got is that we just, right before the meeting, almost like a couple hours before the meeting, we received an email from the Army Corps that basically is stating that they're expected that they finally gave the ticking clock, basically, which is September 28th is when the SHPO review is done. Basically, and that's so SHPO was the last step. Basically, it's the State Historic Preservation Office, and basically that's what's going through is it goes back to that tribal consultation kind of thing.
Yes.
And now, based on our conversation with Lorraine, they're saying we shouldn't be too concerned about this because if anything if there were any tribal impacts, they would have probably found that already. But I don't want to get everyone's hopes too high. There still is 3 weeks here. Not 2 weeks, where they can make a comment. We're not anticipating any comments, but with that said, by September 28th is when that comment period closes, and that is the last step from what they were telling us on making the permit. And we've gotten such positive feedback that even the permit tech over at the Army Corps has basically said she started drafting up the documents basically in order to, right when that timeline hits, within the next 1 to 2 weeks, we would have the permit if there were no comments. So that puts us at around, about a mid-October is when we would anticipate, and we're really hoping we can get that permit right then. Right. Luckily, now that we've, on the top of the queue, the Army Corps has been very responsive to us as of recent, which means that there is action. So we can keep our fingers crossed here. We're anticipating everything kind of mid-October to get that permit.
You're right up against the wall on the wet season, but
it's right up against the wall, yes. So I guess that kind of transitions me to my next topic of the contractor, but I just want to open up if anyone has any specific questions on the environmental, when we're receiving that permit, and just anything more to talk about, and then move to the contracting next phase.
that's what they.
I'll just comment.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting when you light a fire and 2 hours before the fire meeting? I had my whole spiel, my dance routine, screaming, yelling, everything. And they knew that was coming, so it was easier to just get somebody off the dime. But at least it's done now.
Yes.
So
I just have a question. Did you say tribal approval?
It's tribal consultation. So basically any
No,
yeah.
I understood. I didn't think Buena Vista was near any tribal thing, so I'm just trying to understand how this works,
Yeah,
but
no,
okay.
so basically the Army Corps has this checklist. And
Oh,
it's a
okay.
federal project, it's a
Okay.
federal.
Oh, that's fine.
permit,
Go
so,
ahead and
yeah,
just
they go
thought, I said, well, I didn't think we were anywhere near an Indian reservation.
15 years ago,
No, no.
this wouldn't have been an
Yeah,
issue.
I just
But
love it.
now they keep building it.
That's just,
and, before long, I guess maybe all of us will get to have a say.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
Just want to make sure I heard that right.
No, that's
That's
yeah. So that's the kind of
Yep.
curveballs we deal with.
Yeah.
And I'm not too worried about it
No.
because what we would do is, well, let me back up.
No, you don't have to, I don't want to, but I just wanted to know because, again, I'm new at this and being that there's no Indian tribe in the vicinity of Buena Vista, I thought I'd ask, so, but got it.
If they come up with something, but you just pay them, that's the deal.
Eyes.
$100 an hour and you sit out there on the site and watch them work.
Okay.
And it's, and the other thing we need to advise them is, another thing that we have to pay is, is there's this mitigation program. And that water course flows down by that Mission San Luis Rey or
Yeah.
whatever. So it's named the same as the Mission San Luis Rey Mitigation Fund.
Okay.
And so all the projects upstream have to pay into this fund
I see.
so that when they have a project in the main river, that they have the money for it. So I said, now listen, we don't want to be waiting on our permit because we haven't paid. And that's now 23.
23,000 was the last estimate for that, the mitigation.
So I said, let's get going now because the money's the same if it's paid next month or now.
Yeah.
I'd rather pay it now and not, so they're sending us an invoice or something.
Correct, so the steps on that is basically now you got the estimate from them, then the next step is the write up a contract basically, and once we sign that contract, that price is secure, because the price is based on land value, which as you know, that's all over the place every day. So what you're doing with the mitigation fee, there is administration fee involved, but really it is, you buy a piece of land that's they have this dedicated mitigation area, wetland. And basically the amount of area you disturb, you buy that, and our impact is about 0.04 of an acre. And that puts us at 23,000. I think it goes for, I think you said 545,000 per acre for the mitigation bank, but that's a lot of administration included in that. So it's, that's back to just all the money you got to pay for this.
Right.
So
That's
big on
pretty
top.
much close. You got the Indian issue and then we got the thing. And then we should be done and they sign it, we're not good. You can turn the contract.
Yep. Yeah, and just, I know that this is putting us on time, but I remember at the last meeting, we were asking about potentially, permits expiring. Just for everyone's knowledge, we are informed by the environmental plan. You have it's a 5-year period that you get those permits for to start within that period. So we were still well within that timeline, but, just for future, right now, since we got this, we don't have to worry about that anymore, but that's just, so everybody knows, it's a 5-year timeline, that's where that would expire.
Wasn't there one timeline that was going to expire in the spring?
We thought so at the last meeting.
Yeah.
But in this other meeting we had, they said they're all 5 years.
Oh, okay.
So it keeps, I think the question was, do you have the option to delay this to spring without having?
That was one of the questions.
So
Of course,
that
ongoing
option's
cost
still-
increase
Yeah.
for folks on a fixed budget
Yeah.
isn't a smart thing.
No, and then, yeah, that's, so that's just like the knowledge, it's not really as important anymore as it was last month, but I just wanted to give you all the information on that. So,
Yeah.
as Jim was saying, we pay the mitigation fees, but we're gonna get the permit before the mitigation fee is what allows us to start, basically. Because once we give the notice to proceed, document basically to the regional water board, like, wait, you didn't pay your mitigation fee. So we wanna have that in hand right now, right? Right when we go in, so they're putting that together, I'm expecting to get an invoice or the contract secured this week. And then we can, move on from that, but, that gives us, we have until October 15th is, when we're expecting the permits, to early to mid-October. And then with that said, I reached out to Southland Paving, I had a good conversation with, Jason Roby over there, and, he basically let me know that, he does have crews available around mid-October. So that's a big thing. And then he's checking on the auto site, which that's where you get your dirt from basically, because you've seen there's a lot of dirt fill in right now. So that's the only thing he's still checking on, but I did receive another email that it seems like the job site, they have some of the dirt available, but he has 2 sites potentially right now. So they're just confirming that. But the good news is, I think the harder obstacle is they have crews ready in mid-October, which right now, that's where a lot of contractors are booked out for six months right now, so, that's a good news on us. So it looks like we're, I think we're gonna make it before the heavy rain, which we're anticipating to be around, it starts November, but the heavy rain season, what we've seen around here, starts around December. And they think that they can have the bottom of that creek built out, not all the improvements in, just well enough to handle stormwater within 2 weeks to start. So that means, if we get this started, mid, late October, November 1st, kind of the latest, I think we'll be able to mitigate any risk, well, not any, but mitigate most of the risk on that, and we can go ahead with that. So I think, talking generally about this, I think it's best that we, do everything we can to proceed right away with this, mid-October, but of course, that's what we would recommend, but I'd like to hear your takes on it, I guess.
No, I think the sooner that we get going, the more, or the less likely we are to run into an issue with the rain.
Correct.
And, the rate of inflation is difficult to deal with.
Yes.
So I think the sooner that we start and the sooner we end and pay, the less costly it would be for us. Is there any action required by either the committee or the full board at this point on Buena Vista? Everything has been
So we awarded the
basically
contract.
signed off, right?
I don't want to step on your toes here, Jim, but as far as I understand, we have the contract awarded, everything's in place, we have everything on board. I don't think there's any necessary board approval, but I think we just need the
So at this point,
authorization whether we want to go ahead or not. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm actually making notes really to give to you at the end of your report. The first would be to advise the board of the $23,000 mitigation fee that you recommend that be approved. And it sounds to me the mechanics of that is just like an invoice is going to come in, and then we'll cut the check for the treasurer, which is Robert. And just letting the board know that you believe they should pay those fees. The law requires we pay those fees, but just in terms of the mechanics of it. And then when that check hits his desk, sign it, away we go.
Will that 23K be brought up to the finance?
I didn't bring it to them, and that they don't meet until the day before the board meeting. Calendar hits this month. So I'll let them know that it's coming, but perhaps in your report that you discussed it here, and you think that you should proceed. And then I think just, most as a courtesy, that you've reviewed the project again with Ron. And I guess they'll have already given your report, so they'll know. So that you met in more detail with Ron and concluded that we should proceed. Because you do have the option of putting it off. We didn't think that, we were afraid that we would lose permits.
Yes.
But in reality, you could say hold till spring, but it sounds to me like.
I'd like to get it off the books.
Well,
So,
yes, and if we hold the spring, the contract's not valid through the spring.
no, there'll be a renegotiation. They hope it.
More damage done to
It'll go
the
up.
project and money's going up. Yeah.
October 15th to me is doable because you're right, the rains really don't come into that in November. It's kind of, so that should give them plenty of time.
So I think, so with that said, I think that we have the good news. Now, I don't, I always have to put the disclaimer in there. We don't have the permit yet. We're anticipating that everything closed. If they gave us comments in the 2 weeks, which aren't expected, there's still that, that's still on the table. We don't have the permit yet, but we have very good indications that we're getting it. So I don't want to kind of throw the party yet, but I do like to give good news when I'm not giving them for the past year now.
That's
So, good.
All right.
I think that sums up everything for one of us on my end, unless anyone else had any questions.
No, I think you covered everything for me. You know anything?
I learned something too. I'm very impressed.
So that's excellent. It's been on the agenda for a long time. but
Yes.
you didn't get off.
Very nice to get that done before the end of the year.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so the next then is, still in your, area, the, engineering project for,
Slurry.
the slurry seal. I was looking for the words for the, renovation project, or whatever we refer to that as.
Roadway rehabilitation, usually
Roadway
that's
rehabilitation.
that's the all encompassing one.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you. Yes, me again. So I'm just gonna, right now, I guess I'll give a little update. So we did receive bids on September 8th, basically. And I have the bid results right here. And I can pass it out to, I'd love to fix that. Share. So, the bids right now, it's all based on the bid schedule A. And yes, the reaction is the correct one. The bids did come in a bit high. Unfortunately, I will, just to give a bit of background on how everything's going right now. You know, prices are just all over the place right now, because there's really no way to fully estimate. But, you know, right now, we estimated about $675,000 on this project. And it looks like the low bid came in around $943,000. The second low bid came in around $989,000. And just to give you a little background, this is something that we're dealing with across the board. I'll tell you, we had just within the last month, we had 2 projects go out to bid, one in the city of Pico Rivera, another in the city of Southgate. In the city of Pico Rivera, it's about a $2 million project. We were within 1% of the estimate out there. The other project was in the city of Southgate. For some reason, we were expecting to be a $3 million project. It came in at $4.5 million, the low bid, and the highest bid came in around $9 million. So usually when we see this stuff happening, we can pinpoint and say, all right, slurry and asphalt, these are way ahead, we can do this. But for some reason, it's just all over the place. And it's really, to me, from when I'm talking with the contractors and our construction management team, it's just people are so strung out right now and their backlog is so full that it's just catching the contractor at the right time to do all this little stuff. But they're just working too hard right now. And just, you know, material shortages don't help. But we are at the tail end of the material shortages, but it's just, it's been tough ever since the pandemic to get any estimate to be kind of right on the number there. So as you can see, we're a little bit above. The budget was going to be $725 for this, but the good thing is, this is going to cover the annual project, and I've discussed, there's ways to cancel that out in the next year, or there's multiple avenues to go through on that, but
Should we get any more bids?
It's a couple more months.
that would,
It's the steel bid process you go through, and you have to publish it in the paper and go to the planner.
Okay.
So that was my concern when we opened the bids. We kept watching the door to see if somebody's gonna sneak in here at 159, and they didn't. We know both of these companies, and I think they both worked for us at one time or another. Roy Allen, I know, has. Yeah, both of them.
American Asphalt was last year.
Right, so, as far as the law goes, it's okay because we went through the process. We've got copies of our advertising and the plans and everything. But we could, the board could say, let's go out to bid again. But that process with the timelines that are in the law is 2 months.
When is the slurry seals closed?
So that all depends, the best timeline right now would be, we see these bids and you accept them basically, and then the next step would be to recommend to the board for approval or award of the contract. And then that would mean the contract would start, within the next month or so. I talked to the lower responsible bid, no one's won the contract yet, no one's been awarded it. American Asphalt South right now is the lowest responsive bidder. That's what we call it. And that's why I put the spreadsheet together to make sure there's no unbalanced bids. This is called a bid analysis spreadsheet. Just so everyone to know. But you can see the numbers right there. Oh yeah, no problem. So this is second nature to us. It helps organize everything. But the big thing I'd like to point out is you see how close these two are, kind of like 50,000 away. That's a good indicator that this is really the market price. Now, when you see prices all over the place, that means that people are interpreting the plan wrong, and there could be something wrong. But when you see bids this close to each other, you kind of, that's really what it's going for. But sometimes you see them way across the board, and that's when you gotta really start questioning that project.
There's a few things that are significantly different between, but they tend to be the lower cost items. When we get to the higher cost, the variation from the engineering estimate in particular, where there's a significant difference. The two seem to be pretty close together. For instance, you look at traffic control, we had estimated that at 51,000. One of them's 104, the other one's 109.
And if you look at last year, last bid, traffic control all across the board was only like 30 to 40. So that's
Most likely a wage related.
correct.
And the slurry seal type 2, one is 173, the other is 243. That's a big difference.
Yeah, so that was 385, and that's another, so it's the price did come a bit high. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it.
No,
It's
it's
interesting.
interesting to see how we.
Yeah, and what some people do is, one contractor tactic is to take money out of mobilization because let's just say the slurry price goes up. The slurry seal and the asphalt are very main bid items, right?
Right.
So when the way they get paid out for these is quantity. Now, if they go over, every bid they go over, they're gonna get, every ELT they go over, they get this price every year. So that's when we call it an unbalanced bid, basically, is if we see this price is way too high and the mobilization and they're splitting costs everywhere, that's when we would say, this isn't too bad, it's always what you're gonna see, but that's what we check for in these bid analyses, but, because if you see it, everything else is really low, and then one bid item is really high, that means the contractor's seen something that's wrong, and he's trying to make money on it. That's what we call an unbalanced bid.
So his note of, is this Cape Seal or Cap Seal?
Cape seal.
Cape Seal. So they're higher than ours. That's interesting. Everything else is lower than that. Okay.
Yep. That's the one where they're higher, and that's more of it's a specialty.
Okay.
Well, the reality is we're probably not going to do a lot better than this, or more likely do worse than this if we were to go out for an additional bid. We need to do the work.
Correct. And these are the same two that always bid on it. We always get these two. So if we did it again, we get these two again. I think last year we only got two or three bids.
Right.
So
What I'm thinking, and it just dawned on me an hour, 2 hours ago, Electra was talking, fun. We're gonna have two projects going at the same time, which is good from an inspection and project management standpoint, because that's the overhead that they rolled at. The project manager, we're gonna get the same guy, Jason.
so Jason Brown should be, I can't guarantee.
These guys really
good
good
months
at
out, but
this, and he agreed.
anyway, yeah,
He's kind of the money man, keeps everybody on their toes.
he scares the contractors.
He shows up just once in a while, and then they have a full-time, on-site inspector. But what I'm thinking is, if we work the timing right, we can have the same inspector. He doesn't have to stand around Buena Vista all day. He can go do some slurry seal inspection at the same time. So anyway, I
I
think that's a
think we
good.
go forward with this. When would we actually start the work?
So if we were to, so for the slurry, as we kind of discussed, the next step is gonna be awarding the project, next meeting if we so, that's what we're recommending, but that's of course up to you right now. If we did get that, this next Wednesday, we awarded the project, that would start, getting all the bonds put in place and the insurance documents, so that usually takes about 2 to 3 weeks. The biggest thing would be the contractor availability. I did talk with the contractor, American Asphalt South, a little bit now, and he has slurry crews that could be available as early as November 1st, the earliest they would be available. But there's other areas of work that can be done beforehand, so I would say.
There is an overlap with the other project.
Correct, yeah, so the first, the order of operations would be the mobilization is the first thing, that's when they go in and just clean everything, you don't need your top crew for that, for stuff like the main items like slurry and pavement, that's when you need your top crew, so that's why there's multiple crews, but he could start as early as like a week before November 1st, maybe even 2 weeks before, but I would say the safe estimate would be about a week before November 1st. We can guarantee that he'll be able to get out there. But that's, so that puts us around late October, which takes about that much time to get the bonds figured out. It's only about a week extra.
Just so I understand, they patch before they slur? Oh, okay.
Correct, yeah, any area that needs a full depth,
Yeah.
replacement, that's gonna be done.
That's what,
Yes.
yeah, there's, when their bid, $257,000 is remove and construct.
Yeah, the bottom line.
Yeah. And then we're gonna talk a little more about that later in the meeting, TJ in his report. Because we're thinking about maybe adding on to that, but we're gonna show you some pictures.
Okay, yeah.
So,
Over the last few months, we've been doing a little bit of that in-house. Now, I doubt that that's a good thing to do on a project like this because you get shared responsibility for degradation and that sort of thing. But looking forward in the future, is it something that could be considered? We're still running on a fixed income and we've got an ever increasing cost for doing this work. So if we were doing some of these repairs in-house and then the slurry seal occurred following that, is that likely to be something that would be accepted by a contractor?
on a smaller scale, and it'd always be, whatever we did before, like the contractor will accept it, they'll just slurry over it and it just won't be, you know.
Okay.
I guess it opens up the kind of case of, if there ever was any finger pointing after a project, that's what's gonna happen. They're gonna say, oh, you did this wrong, but, so that's why it's always better that if we're gonna do a project, just get everything on
Right.
one year. But, you know, that's always a possibility. That's very rare, finger pointing at the end, but, you know, it could happen.
But at this point, they've already bid those
Correct.
areas.
Mhm.
So, I don't think we can pull it out.
No, I don't think at this point we could.
Yeah.
The,
Well, what I'm thinking.
about a third of the total cost is, well, actually not a third, but about a fourth is in that repair category.
And that's what happens, you know, in recent years, based on our PCI data, we did all the fairly good roads, which didn't have much repairing to do. Now we got all those done, and now we're getting to the, and as we go on, it's gonna be towards, until we redo the cycle, which is about a 7-year cycle, it's, we got rid of all the fairly good. It's good because then they'll never get down to the poor, but, it's, you're gonna see a little more repair costs.
What do you anticipate the total days this would take to knock out?
30.
30 days?
Yeah, 30
working days?
working days are in the contract, basically.
So they're charging about $3,500 a day for traffic control. Is there anything there we
So right now,
over and discuss, or do you think they're just putting in some of the profit in that line item?
I mean, if you look at
They're
the
more than double what you guys estimated, and so I don't know what, if they're loading that up or something, but are they,
it's, you know,
what they anticipate of traffic, how these streets don't have any traffic?
the hardest part about the slurry seal job is the phasing, basically. So they do need to have a flag man up there. They have to have one lane open at all times, so that, you know, unless they were to close the whole road down, which, right, a full day, but that's something we'd have to, that's not allowed, it's not safe, that was good next, but,
It's not a single flag man, you gotta have somebody on each end.
yep, and kind of back on what you said, wages are high right now, or just storage, I mean, it's hard, I mean, I do see your point, they are charging a lot more, the one thing you can look at
I
is
thought
their
for 100,000 flags.
Hey, there you go. But no, I'm not.
I didn't know if
concerned
that was
about-
something that, you know, maybe there's a.
And the good thing about that lump sum price, yes, maybe they're putting some of the profit in there. Look, the two are close together, and
Yep.
they can't say that if something does go wrong, they can't request more money based on that. I mean, unless something really went wrong, but like that's not a loaded bid item where they can run the quantity up and make higher. It is what it is. It's a lump sum item. But no, just on that, I'll give you the full rundown here, basically, the full budgetary numbers that we got from the select line too. So obviously, if the budget was $943,402 for construction, our design fee and pavement inspection for the preliminary design and everything for the plans, that came out to about $14,269. And then the CM, the anticipated CM cost, I think that this was the estimate, it's most likely gonna go down a little bit, but it was a CM cost of about $45,000 total. Putting this at, if the full budgetary amount would have been $1,002,671 basically for this entire project.
How many miles to go?
I think it was around 7 to 8, but don't hold me to that number, I don't have the exact number, I can get a better number on that.
Bring that at the board meeting.
Yes.
'Cause I think everybody wants to.
Yeah.
Okay, so at this point, our action is to decide, first of all, whether or not we want to recommend to go forward or not. And if that recommendation is made, then presenting to the board on Wednesday and seeking board approval to go ahead and authorize the lowest, since these are both qualified bidders, the lowest bid. And then ask the full board to take action on that.
And you don't, just so I understand, you don't go back to like, let's say American Asphalt and go, your removal was a lot, or whatever, your orange asphalt, concrete, and new construction was a lot. I think, yeah, okay.
I don't think legally we can do that.
You know, we'd have to rebid it. If we had a problem, if we had an issue with these, we'd have to rebid it, you know, to solve that.
Jeez, oh, really? Okay.
The district doesn't have the right to remove any bid items from the job, and we have that in our spec language, but, you know, that's.
Boy, I'm in the wrong business, really, you can just, okay. All right.
In this situation, it looks like that, if you see a project that has 10 different bids.
No, I
you see
know,
how
I'm just saying,
competitive
it's, yeah, yeah.
they are.
You know, the competitive bid process kind of eliminates the negotiation other than removing that.
Okay, I understand how it works, thank you.
And these projects tend to need a good relationship between the contractor and the organization. You know, that we have that now, and that might not prevail between attempt to negotiation. Well, we can't do it. Okay, so Rick or Ross, and I think our job is to decide whether or not to make a motion to go forward with this.
Well, I make a motion to go forward with it, I give you a speak on, and then get it done at the same time if possible.
I concur and I second. So we'll, in the report, we'll make the presentation to the board to recap what we've learned here and follow that with the recommendation and seek their approval.
So as far as the mechanics of this, in that item, because this item will precede the committee reports. So what you need to do, we did this a couple of months ago. So you introduce the bid process and what the results were, okay? And then indicate that you brought this to the committee. And then pause or just say, and perhaps, or at this time, it would be appropriate for a committee report. So that portion of your report would be in his item on the.
Should we divide that report into segments and report only on this one? Yeah.
Just on this one that then, you know, say our thoughts on the bottom, let them say it. And then you can continue on. I guess at that point, then it would go to board discussion.
Yeah.
So get all the facts on the table, you know, you're probably gonna have some PowerPoint or something on the screen. Just-
Yeah, I can flash the numbers.
Yeah.
This is a pretty good thing to have.
Yeah, so just go through all the detail, and then when you conclude, then turn it over to Chuck.
Okay,
For a
so
committee report.
Just make sure I got it right. So just introduce the process like we did every year and indicate that it was part of the committee, then allow the committee to report to Chuck and then the board discuss
And
it.
then I'll talk to the president, and after Chuck's finished, then it's open board discussion.
Okay.
And so just get all the facts on the table.
That works for me.
Great.
All right, marching orders.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're still with you on the study that we discussed at the last meeting for dangerous
Yes, so,
areas.
yeah, so for the dangerous roadways, I think, I've talked with Jim a little bit about this as well. So we're gonna do, that district-wide study. We're kind of still in the, concept phase on that. We haven't had, it's out there. It hasn't been, full speed ahead yet, but I think, I'm talking with Jim, have you been involved in this yet, Steve? That's why I think Steve is gonna kind of take the lead on that one, and it's gonna be, because it's a lot geared towards traffic, related issues, I wouldn't even call them issues, just traffic related, areas of concern. But it's more just to figure out how our roadways are, and see how they are faring right now. So I don't know, Steve, if there's anything.
Maybe,
Like my view of it was to get some fresh eyes on
Correct.
have some recommendations for us on how to improve the safety.
so Steve and I met, and I guess we were reviewing the next item here, the
Okay.
traffic data. But the reality of it is, there's a lot of engineering involved here in this study, but it's really a traffic study.
Yes.
Because that's really where the issues are, okay? So what I think we should do is have Steve take the lead on this as a traffic study.
Yeah.
And expand the scope of it to look at all of the ingress, egress roads, because Los Gatos is obviously something we need to look at, and it's an ingress, egress. But there's others, like on the other side, going over to Temecula, that one right above Old Town, I can't remember. Estribo. Then we've got a couple of them that in history is that when they had the border checkpoint, there was a lot of smuggling going through those
Yeah.
roads. And those roads still exist, and a few of them go to dirt. But maybe we should take a look at what's going on with these roads from nowhere. And bundle it all into one package. And then there's Duluth Road, and where it connects to the county dirt road. We had a call here recently about, when are we gonna pave this, because my 3 teenage kids use it every day. And I'm like, I wouldn't send my teenage kids down that road that.
It's not a bad road if
I
they,
drove into that part.
if they just don't race down it.
Yeah. Everything was fine, me,
Yeah.
just kind of.
If they just kind of go very slow, but yeah,
Passed by these trucks.
that's never the case.
Yeah, but maybe we should look at that. That is within, it becomes dirt, right in our boundary. But nonetheless, we've got different kind of traffic users of that. Just like Los Gatos, different users. So anyway, I think we should have Steve lead that up, that he can go to engineer within Wellman through you. If we're talking about the slopes, the grades,
Yeah.
all that, that's him, but.
It's certainly driven by traffic, but there's a lot of engineering content to it, so.
Right,
it would be
right.
the process.
Somebody needs to take the lead, and I think Steve probably has more time. And so if there's no any issue with that, then I think from this point on, we'll agendize this each month and see if we can't get some things to talk about.
What do we see as the schedule for conducting that? Is this a 2-week job or a 2-month job?
What was the first one?
The
Before the
schedule of
2 months.
events to
2 weeks.
2 weeks, oh, no.
Yeah, so 2 weeks or 2 months.
I'm thinking this is gonna go on probably till next spring.
Yeah.
Because we need to look at some action items. I don't know what those are gonna be.
Well, the first thing was getting an estimate for the cost to do it, I believe, wasn't it?
But we don't know yet what we might do.
Right.
You know, I'll just toss one out. And these could be controversial. I mean, the problems on that one particular road is downhill. I mean, from outside in, right? We don't have any issues with that.
Yeah.
So one of the options could be to turn that into a one-way road. But now that's gonna be a while because that's gonna be controversial and we gotta figure out who we're affecting. Some of the road data that Steve and I looked at recently, I was rather surprised, but the data changed as a result of what's happened in the last few months. But there really aren't a lot of vehicle trips now on that road. So it looks like it was being used as a cut through by people who aren't cutting through anymore. But we'll let Steve. Anyway, I think this is gonna lead into, and then their discussion about, like Gina and I talked about, it was Gina's idea, well, why not just a height limit? We have a weight limit. You know,
Just
like
on that road,
they
yeah.
do,
So
they do,
can't,
when you go into parcel
Height bar,
structure.
like something,
Um,
yeah.
Because if you're limited on the height, it limits your weight. So it's an idea that needs to be considered, and Steve and I talked about that. So we need somebody to take the lead, start putting these down, getting some facts, and then come back to the committee and start working on it. And each road is gonna be different. And I think Los Gatos would be the first,
That's the number one.
number one.
Mhm.
But then there's some of these others that probably need to be looked at.
I think that's good. The others don't have the accident level that Los Gatos has. So I'm just afraid someone's gonna kill themselves going
I mean,
there.
it's happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want, yeah, so that's why I'm concerned.
In the course of doing this, the process to go through this is to, number one, to define a statement of work for the study, know what to study. Then from that, get estimates of the cost of the study. This is obviously something we're going to fund and we're going to pay for it. And then from that, get the results for what work might be done. So we're at the very beginning of that right now. And so how do we get to the point of actually having a study conducted? Because that in itself needs to be funded, doesn't it?
Yeah. I believe, we fund engineering and traffic engineering in the budget.
We're well under budget.
Yeah, we're under budget
Yeah.
there. But we just put funds because we don't know what's gonna happen in the coming year when it comes budget time. So I think we can get started on this within that.
Within the
budget.
existing budget.
Because I can't remember the exact numbers, but in engineering, I don't know, about 50,000, I think, and then in traffic, it's 30,000, somewhere in that range of just unknown, engineering cost. So I think we can get started under what we have. And maybe the first thing Steve can do is develop that scope. It was just last week we talked about expanding, so I haven't really given that too much thought. But
Is that an action that requires any action from the committee, or is that within the scope of just management directive?
well, I think it's both. In terms of the funds, I have money in the budget right now to do at least what I think, 25,000, something like that. Okay, that they would need somewhere.
Well under that first.
I would think, yeah.
I mean, that's not,
And
it's
but
not a large, I guess what I would say is, you might have some multi-million-dollar type solutions that would be identified, but we're not gonna spend a lot of time going through it, designing or, working it out, because we may not, the money to do it anyway, At that time, you ever decide you want to do that kind of project, then you can take on any engineering stuff, but I think think our job is just, at this point, maybe it's just to identify the options to look at. What are the stuff we can do right now, what are something we want to plan for, and reference stuff, and that's not a very big study. That's,
Do you think that involves looking at areas to be considered, or is that still open for the professional study? What we presented at the last general meeting of the board was just notification that we were considering this as something that is needed in the community because of potential safety impact. So we're moving beyond considering to defining actions. And I think the next step is a scope kind of development. And that's what believe I'm hearing is within the bounds of the existing budgeted funds.
Steve,
Yeah.
could we put together just a one sheet of what we're gonna look at, what you're gonna end up looking at?
for the
That
board
you
meeting.
could present, that
Yeah.
we've been discussing this, you mentioned it in your last report to the board. And now we think your committee are in favor of moving forward with this. I think all the board members are in favor of, because everybody got some questions on some street that we're talking about. So,
And
But-
adding-
I guess what I'm thinking
adding Another street or two, and I get this, and gonna blow the study, I'm like, oh my God, I need to know.
At some point, we're going to need to provide the board a expectation for what the funding level will be for the professional study to be done. Right now, I think what we're saying is we're preparing the requirements documentation, go out to a professional organization to have this study done. And then from that, we would get the results that may be far out of the scope of what we have to do, but there may be things that are within the scope of what we can do. So somewhere between now and then, the board is going to have to approve spending money.
right,
To do
we
the study.
need, I think what we need is a study before the study. Of what-
It's a requirements
what alternative-
documentation, yeah,
Right, yeah, okay. And,
which we're saying, I believe, we have the
We have
funds
funds for
in-house to
that.
do that.
right,
And Director Ross, I think it may be appropriate for us to approve that step just as the formal beginning of the total project, whatever it may develop into. And that may in itself come to a requirements that is beyond the scope of the district to fund, or well within, and we don't know what that's going to be until we sit down with the requirements.
We need to make a motion.
So I think a motion would be appropriate to recommend that the board go forward. Well, first of all, recommend that the internal funds be used, that are available, be used in part to set a requirements document or put together a requirements document for this study.
I second the motion.
Okay. And then we'll present that step to the board
Yes.
next week and let them know that if it's successful and we come up with a good requirements document, there's going to be a next step, which will be actually searching for and presenting a formal project.
perfect. So this will not actually take a board action
Right.
at this stage, but you'll indicate you have, that you took an action, and that you're notifying the board, and if there's no objection, so ordered kind of thing, to proceed. Once we
Action
get-
requirement study.
Right, and that we'll be using existing funds
Okay.
in the budget. And then when we come back and we know that we've got to fund a study of height limit or, whatever it might be, that would then take like a budget.
When you say requirements document, are you interchanging that with developing the scope of the study?
I consider them really to be the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
Anything is possible for someone who doesn't have to do it. I say anything is possible for someone who doesn't have to actually do it. It's easy for me to say, yeah, we'll do that. Okay. So that kind of leads us right into the traffic enforcement matters. Steve, do you have?
We have a presentation.
We get a lot of questions about how's the traffic going, what's the count?
What traffic?
That's what they say, what's the count, what happened?
That's the back. Yeah. All right, so here's what we've worked on. Yeah. As you know, they installed the gates back on July 2nd. And then this is what happens, of course, for the people who don't pay attention to the numerous signs that we have posted along the way. But there's a gate ahead and access is limited. You know, they're learning the hard way. And they have these signs up here for those who don't have access code, they can turn around. Lastly, this is kind of a description. So I just want to kind of get that all done. So, yeah, they were fully warned and all that kind of stuff. So the good news is they finally figured it out. They don't have a few weeks to settle down. This is kind of the gate was closed on 7/2, and then we started collecting data there on 8/2. So again,
Just a quick question, Steve. Do you believe from what you've seen that there was any impact on the traffic count from folks who turned around? You think there was enough traffic that drove to the gate, turned around and came back, that it actually affected the traffic study that we did?
the answer is yes, that's a possibility, because we don't have a GPS tracker on every single car. So we don't know if the traffic that went down and came back up during the day was somebody who was turned around, or was it somebody who went down, went and did the business and came back a little later in the day?
It's a good question, because I've seen
It's-
this.
So I guess the benefit of that would be is if it was people turning around, then the numbers would be even better than what I'm going to show you.
Yes.
You know, so that's the good news out about that. All right, so next one. So here's what we found. Back in the day, say back there, a few months ago, before Ron went and fixed all the roads, we had 2,000 cars roughly a day coming through that area of the county line. Now, after the gate closed, we're down to 243 cars for the whole day. During the 4 to 6 p.m., which is when we've always been tracking this thing, because that's been the heaviest cut-through time, if you want to call it, commuter time avoiding the freeway, was 1,000 cars a day, now 32. So even if those 32 are going down and coming back, that's not much, that kind of thing. So now up at Avondale, of course, that means there's going to be a change in traffic up there, because if you had a resident who used to maybe sneak out to Fall Brook, that way it doesn't have access code, then they choose to go out, Avondale or something. But you can see there, after the road was reopened, we had 3,000 cars, and now we're down to 29. So that dropped another 30%. And the 46 was the same way. Buenos Campos, huge, 2,000 cars that were coming through that cut-through detour route that we had set up for there. Went to 262 after Ron opened up the road, and then now it's down to 35. So it's just continually dropping. And in the peak hour, you're talking about 3 cars. Same thing with Cherry. Those numbers have pretty much been identical along the way, because it was really one way and one way out to that detour.
So the detour people, you can see why they were upset.
Oh, no, I know.
Wow, that's a lot. But now they're down to
They were used to 30, 50 cars a day, and they were most of the 30 or 50 cars, and then also they got 2,000 cars a day,
Can we get a copy of that?
Yeah. I remember Jessica.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I like
I love the coffee. So,
sometimes.
I really hate roads too.
Yeah, yeah.
no, it's, for us that are closer in that area, I've noticed a difference having,
Yeah, you should.
Okay, so
It's unusual on Sandia Creek to come to a stop sign and have someone in front of you. And of course, in the past, there'd be a line of.
yeah, 4, 5, 6 cars in fact, yeah.
And I remember going to the mailbox on the corner and there'd be a line
Yeah.
all the way, and now there's, so it's definitely been significantly helpful.
So we kept going around the district. We checked a few of the streets. So here's Deanza. And Deanza takes people out to Cameron, which takes them out to Concho, Duluth, whichever they happen to be going that part of the district. And you can see the same thing here. Deanza had, after Ron opened up the road, we got rid of the detour route, there's still 821, and it dropped down over 50% on Deanza too. Okay, and then this section between Cherrica and Cameron going out towards Duluth and Concho, same thing, but from 1,000 down to 400, so that's about a 60% drop there. Next slide. All right, so now we looked at Cameron and see, okay, how they're doing there, and they're the same thing. 824, dropped down to 360, or 60% drop going that direction. And Sandia Creek, which we were just talking about here, El Prado de Concho, was at 1,639, now down to 728. That's huge. Or, 1,000 cars a day just out of that section. We did a few other little checks to make sure of what things are going. We wanted to make sure that, El Prado South wasn't, getting any sort of bypass traffic, and that was held steady. And we checked Los Gatos, and this is what Jim was talking about earlier. This is all the traffic that goes out Los Gatos and in for a whole day. So we'll be using those numbers when we talk about this scope of work and stuff like that.
Right.
You're talking about, if you cut that in roughly half, 75 trips out back, and now you see the peak hours, really not much, it's less than 10 per hour. So Duluth Road did accept a couple cars, but this is nothing in compared to what you lost in the district, okay?
Right.
Your district has lost,
There's been some shift, but it's,
yeah, you've lost 1,000 to 2,000 cars on many of your streets, and 200 of them show up over here that said, well, I'm not going to get a gate access, I'm just going to drive around. Okay, not yourself, but it's still this is,
you can see that in the peak hour.
and that's only peak hour. Of the 200 extra cars, 150 of them are in the peak hour. So it's like, okay, but the interesting part is, I think a lot of them are residents. Because look at when you look at Duluth Road, okay, they're not going out of Los Gatos, we just went through that, right? You have 18 or 19 during the peak hour going out through Los Gatos, you've got some going out north on Duluth Road, but you also got that mix of residents that are coming and going.
Mm-hmm.
They may decide, okay, hey, I can't go this way is another route for me. So you got a 400 drop there in the numbers on a daily basis going out that dirt road that everybody goes right up. That's like 50% of traffic there too. So overall, the numbers look really good. I would say from a traffic perspective, this is a win for the district in our.
Oh, yeah, the wear and tear on the roads is going to be huge, significantly.
You take 2,000 cars off these roads.
Yeah.
Times 365 days, that's about 750,000 trips that you got rid of. That's a lot of wear and tear. You don't have to deal with that.
Well,
It's a little longer.
reduction in safety issues as well.
And crime.
Is there one more slide, or was that the last one? Okay, yeah. So just a summary was traffic along Santa Creek obviously is substantially dropped. But what that translates to is, less vehicles means you got more gaps. Which is very helpful, because that was one of the biggest complaints that I came 4.5 years ago was
Sure.
can't get out in the driveways. I think that there's too many cars, so those gaps are there now. The cut through traffic is dramatically reduced, the PPR traffic is dramatically down. And the alternate route that a few people chose is really not adversely affecting anybody.
Yeah, I'd love to get a copy of that too, so I can sit with the map and, get it all kind of straight in my mind.
Jessica, can we do that today?
Yes.
Okay, so before you leave,
Can we, if anyone asks us, can we give them a copy of residence, or are we supposed to keep that confidential?
I mean, that's interesting.
Okay.
Oh,
Because what happens.
this is an open meeting. Right.
It's understandable, but it's one of those things that what people do when they have a bit of information, they run with it. They don't have the logic or the understanding necessarily behind it, so it's just, it's not really beneficial to it. But
So if
if they
they,
want to go to a public meeting and take notes, or they want to take pictures, then you can buy with an average.
The reality is, it's recorded and available,
Right, right.
and it should be.
no, I don't plan on sending it, I
No,
just.
no,
If someone asks me,
it's just a matter of time before we start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, those are-
we have a couple of engineer clients that have been asking me on a daily basis, and when do we gonna get the traffic numbers? So soon.
Check the Duluth website for the latest video.
That's what I do.
Okay. That's very good, Steve. Thank you.
Very,
Field report.
Yes, thank you very much.
This is TJ and Wyatt, your last name, your name.
Yeah, that's my first name.
Your last name?
Oh, over.
That's right, that's right. We've had a bit of a change. Dustin is no longer with us. He's moved on to greener pastures. Anyway, TJ is our acting field service supervisor. And he's Timothy Castle, who goes by TJ. And he's been working for us for about 6 months.
Yeah.
And Dustin trained him and doing a great job under Dustin. And so far in the last 2 weeks, he's been doing a great job under me. So anyway, we're gonna evaluate it in 6 months. So we do have an opening. I'd really like to find somebody with pavement experience. So we're working on that. But in the meantime, everything we've always done for 43 years, we're doing. And so TJ is stepping up to the plate and he's gonna give the report today.
Very good. Yes. Alrighty, thank you. Go ahead and go to the next slide, for me, please. No. Here we go. So the beginning of this month, we actually, the fire marshal, contacted us, to do some weed whacking, because fire season was approaching, so we went ahead and take care of that. Some of the roads we were hitting were like Carancho, Los Gatos, and, Cynthia Creek. Next slide, please.
The 4 photos that were up there, what do they represent? Were those,
Those are like,
before and after?
yes, sir. Before.
Very good.
And we're currently, now that we've already done the request of the fire marshal of weed whacking, we're doing drain inspections, doing our best to get them all inspected before crazy weather starts to hit. Drains are organized by zones 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We are taking pictures of the inlet and the outlet.
Yeah.
Some of them are not accessible due to being in someone else's property, or if there's like too much just brush on the way that we can't access.
Do you have tools to help with that, like,
Yeah.
foresight kind of things?
Yeah.
kind of a super foresight, but.
Yeah. We got, the
Camera.
lockers, and stuff like that, weed whackers, so, and then we're also writing them down as well. By zone, pipe number and condition, if these are like good, bad, starting to rust, clogged, but such like those are pretty much spotless ones, so they're good.
So you can kind of keep those in a prioritized area of ones that need.
Yeah.
Go first.
And then we're also, oh, sorry, not quite yet.
Sorry.
We are spray painting white dots, like on, curves,
Oh, wow.
just like, so it's easier for us to spot for an inch here.
Because on their GIS, they don't get signals. So they have to bring the data back. and-
Right.
So when they come back at the end of the day, there's a lot of paperwork that needs to get done. But,
But it's all necessary.
it is, and this is all new in the last 3 years or whatever. They would inspect the drain to kind of clear out the inlets or whatever, but, that wasn't good enough for FEMA. So by having all these photographs and now they're put into the GIS, we can show if this pipe blows out, we can show to
It was
FEMA
a good
year
pipe
after
at one
year
point in
after
time.
year, yeah.
So we have evidence that it wasn't working.
Right, and then we maintained it, because the rusting out of the bottom isn't that big of a deal to them. They understand that. They want to make sure though that you did everything necessary to maintain it.
Right.
And didn't just let it sit for 40 years waiting for FEMA to come give you a new pipe. That's what they don't like. So, what they're doing is they're stepping through this process, which we now do every September, starts September 1. And they get pictures of everything, and then we're tossing the problem children into a pile. And then we'll start reviewing it, he and I will do that probably 2 weeks. And then, some may go to Ron, and we may, well, we'll have an answer for each one.
Yeah, right.
And of course, money's always the answer, we don't have any of that stuff. But, we'll make some decision before the rains come on what we're doing with the pipes for the season. So I'm sorry.
No worries.
It's kind of the next step.
So, as of today, Wyatt and I just, completed zone 5 completely. So as of date, zones 1, 2, 3, 4, or excuse me, 1, 2, 3, and 5 of them. And then we're gonna be working on 4, probably rough estimate, maybe a week or 2, and we should be done. So,
So you're about those zones, the zone 4 is the largest.
Yeah.
And those are the zones that are on the map, shown as, numbered on the map.
yes, sir. Go ahead, next slide. And then, this is just some pictures of our recent incident that we found of a sinkhole on Via Los Ventos.
This was at your last board meeting, this is what they were.
Right, exactly. The reason the skid steer wasn't here working.
That's it, right there.
Yeah.
And then one more slide, please. Yes. So, we were actually down there already, doing some weed whacking, and the trash truck driver, actually passed us. And then he was the one that actually spotted the sinkhole, and he actually drove over it a little bit more and sunk it in more. So he came back down and informed us about it. So we went up there, go ahead and assess the situation, called Vulcan Materials, ordered up 4 tons of asphalt.
Yeah.
Asphalt came, or before the asphalt came, we did a little prep work, ran out the asphalt, and then start compacting the layer, because once we opened up the old asphalt, there's actually like holes in there from like gophers and
Yeah,
stuff, just
right.
getting in and everywhere. So we were actually compacted that a little bit, and then the grindings from the old asphalt actually made like
Skid
good.
steer has a compacting tool associated with it, or
No, it doesn't.
how do you go about compacting?
We have,
The truck comes back. and goes,
we actually have it's called a jumping jack. That we go
Okay.
into it, so we use that, and then basically compact that dirt layer, lay and rake out the new asphalt, and then roll it until it's smooth and flat, looks good. I actually spotted this, last Friday. Sure it was down in the middle of the road, grab my pole saw, cut it up real quick, and move it out the way. And then this is Avenida Loro that we talked about a little bit earlier. I did get an estimate on it by NPG, and their estimate was about 95,000. It was about, I think they said 2,500 square feet that needs to be repaired.
So this was, I mentioned there was something else we wanted to talk about. A resident nearby here called, said, well, you guys have been working on this for years. That was the latest. We really like this repaired. And so because it's on Deloro, and I know we're doing the portion that connects up to Rancho Cal with the slurry seal and the repairs. I had TJ turn it over to Ron here. And, but we needed a price. That's why he quickly got a hold of MPG. MPG works full-time for the water district, so they're always around. So they came and gave us a bid. That's way over my $25,000 limit. Sometimes you can gut them into two, which was what I was hoping, but the fours, I don't think that's gonna work. So anyway, the question is, Ron, about how far is this from Sandy Creek?
I'd probably say it's definitely butts up right next to Cali Capistrano, so I'd say about a mile.
And then do we have any work on?
So we have work on Avenida Del Oro. It stops a couple blocks short of this area from what I've seen from that. Yeah, somewhere around there. So I get exact, numbers on that. And I kind of talked with Jim about ways that we could potentially grow this into the project right now, which is already over budget. So
Because they're doing repairs, see, this is a good time
Yeah.
to say, okay, you have this at that price. I'm not sure if this is gonna work or not.
So it'd be a little tougher because you don't want to look like you just went to an area, fixed it, and then left. You know, we want a continuous roadway. Sure. You don't want to Swiss cheese the area, basically, leave gaps everywhere. So, you know, it would be in our best interest if we did that to slurry seal in between, basically. And, you know, it adds cost. But the good thing, I think the best way we can do this is we already have bids on this project, so we can't really touch the limits right now. This is, unless you want to, you know, we already kind of, we can't touch the limits. So, so basically what I can think of, and part of what I talked about, when we do a water project, we usually do a 10% contingency. And that's for if unforeseen conditions come up during construction. We need that in the beginning until about the end. And then if we start seeing that there was no problems going on, that's when we can start putting that money to use. If, you know, it's only if they're not running high on materials. The reason we do that is we have that contingency. We don't need to go back to the board for every little penny and dime that goes on construction. But a lot of times that money doesn't get used up and it goes right back into the fund. So if we have some of that money left over, we can go and explore looking into that area. But as of now, we can't, you know, add this in directly, but it's something we can monitor and see how our money is doing as we go along with the project.
But on the scope of bad to good roads within the district, how would this sit in that?
You have that alligator cracking right there, and it's not just alligator cracking. I'm seeing, it looks like because of the way that the rattling is on the tire there, it looks like there's probably, the big issue is, you know, alligator cracking is your first sign to say, all right, we need to double look at this. And then the next step is you want to see if it gets any, I forget the exact word, but it's like a bowing in the roadway. That means that the subgrade is kind of sinking under a little bit, and that's what a sinkhole is, a giant hole underneath there. This is lesser than a sinkhole, but like, you'll see if the weight of the wheels has been pushing it down. So that's when you know you have a real issue, and so you need to really do a dig out. But because of this falling right there, I'm assuming that there's some, like, right now, just looking at it without going out there, you know, it needs a full depth. I can guarantee that from the picture. But yeah, this would be in the, you know, the report of that.
What would
For
be the
this section.
difference in cost for this contractor doing $1 million worth of work, bidding 2,500 square feet?
I have to look at his actual prices exactly, but I mean, in theory, there's more quantity means lesser price. So if it was the 95,000, it would most likely go down. As
As a part of the larger project, it would be
Correct.
something less than that.
And this one, if you don't address it, can only go up in terms of price because it's gonna keep unraveling.
So, I don't see potholes, that's the good part, so it's, you know, I don't see any risk of this collapsing right away, but it's something that needs to be taken care of.
And you didn't see much decline, in fact, a little bit of an increase on traffic there, didn't you? Or was that in a different section?
The traffic, decline was on the sections between,
Rancho California
and Sandy Creek, yeah.
so this would be on the,
Yeah, further down.
Is this closer by the end of Avenue to Delaware Road?
Checking us near cul-de-sac.
So it's,
Oh, I know where Capistrano is, okay.
east and west,
Okay,
west.
so it's further, okay.
Yeah, we're going from Rancho Cal
Yeah.
to the west, and we don't go that far yet.
So maybe we could have them look at this and say, what would you charge us to add this in? And let's see what we're talking about. We already know
Yeah.
that just an independent, they come out, they fix this. It's in the area of 95. We could probably beat that price, something like that, 85, 90, whatever. Let's see maybe if they're out there anyway. If we said, putting in charges for an add-on. And let's just see what the number is.
is this a candidate for some in-house work?
It's pretty big. That's bigger than, if you could, I don't think.
We've never done anything that big.
The biggest difference would be, hot mix asphalt versus cold patching. I think from what I don't know if you guys do any hot mix, I'm pretty sure you're mostly cold patching, correct? So this would take a full of hot mix asphalt, which you get a truck out there, so.
Gotta have a
get
bit
a
for
full.
all that stuff.
It'd be the same project we just looked at, but about what, 10 times larger area? But you're gonna take the base out, which you had to do because Gophers had already done that, and when you showed us. But, yeah, it would be.
Well, a lot of things on the larger project are gonna multiply traffic control and chemical, that sort of thing. Okay. Yeah, let's get the information on it and see where we are.
The good thing, on every construction job, there, you know, if you're running low on one bid item, you know, it's worked out between the contractor and inspector. So that's when we'll have a good idea of, you know, how we're looking on a job. And maybe, you know,
Is it close enough to the existing work that we're gonna be doing that it could be considered as an extension?
it's close enough. It wouldn't be a additional mobilization. We're already scattered around the whole district, so here, the whole district is their working area from North Valley, so they want to be responsible for those, but they're driving all the way around. So I would, this would not be an extra mobilization. It could be an extension.
Let's get the numbers and see where we're
How
at.
many cubic yards is 2,500 square feet at 6 inches?
Wish I was, so I need to calculate that. It's like basically 2,500 times.
Anybody, 25 by.
So 2,500, if we do a 0.33, and then the times 145 pounds per cubic feet, divided by 2,000, about 60 tons. 60 tons of AC, and what's the square footage again?
2,500.
2,500 times 0.5, that's 6 inches of AP. About 0.7. About 50 cubic yards of base.
50 cubic yards? Okay.
But I don't know, I mean,
So I'm just looking at their price, so 15 cubic yards at 275. It's not very much. 15 cubic yards.
Well, that's why these add-ons, usually, if you have the funds, find a few more projects for them, that the
I'll take
prices.
those the first lease.
It seems
I
like
think this may be,
it's 50.
It's gonna be lower. I don't have the exact number from you.
But I mean, 50 tons times 330 a ton is only $16,000 for the asphalt. If your numbers are right.
It looks, because of no mobilization, they'd have to go out there. And there's also striping and traffic control that would have to be.
Yeah,
reconsidered.
but I'm
But yeah,
saying
it's around 40 to 50. Yeah.
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 which is what you and I started with 50, it was 50, and I was thinking, well, perhaps we could do part of it now, part of it 25, something like that.
Yeah, I know we have tried that still.
We'll see how it's all part.
And I've seen them, actually order more asphalt just to be on the safer side, just in case they run into an extra problem, so.
They do, but yeah, they're gonna, they charge. We charge them based on their ticket, so.
That gives contractors the passing savings on the rest.
That's good. But no, they're out there, they're gonna help us. They actually helped us a couple times last year. I believe they helped us on one of the. Marietta did at one point.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They're willing to help, you know,
Extra workout.
So, to do this, we would need to bring this to the board.
Unless we can fit it in under the 10% contingency.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
or we could take it to the board. But then, we need
Just
to
thinking about
get
the timing on that
bidding,
because we're,
steel beds, stuff like that. We need to stay within the envelope of this project.
Yeah.
So, I think we just need to take it one step at a time. So probably at the next engineering committee meeting, we'll know more, because if things will have just kicked off, we can talk to them, we can get a price, try to figure out how we might be able to do that. And then present it probably at the next meeting, next engineering.
Yeah,
meeting,
right.
and see where we're at.
but at that point, the job hasn't started yet, so, and we can ask now to
Yeah,
the
it's gonna
a
be
little
real
bit,
close.
but we don't want to eat our contingency until we know,
Yeah.
we can. That's what it's.
So it's a 10% contingency fix.
I mean, you know,
For the board authorize 15% contingency.
I mean, you could, I just don't wanna, we already have a project that's.
Already
much
going
over
over.
budget, but I mean, that's not my decision, but yeah, 10% is
Just
what
take
we
it one
typically
step at a
recommend.
time. I think it'll begin to clarify in
Yeah.
the weeks ahead,
I agree.
so.
Okay. Anything else, did you?
Nope, that was it for me.
Thank you. Good report.
Thank you.
You have anything on the permits, subdivisions,
Everything
the county issues?
is quiet, still plodding along in the gas tax, and
Yeah,
there'll be a report on that at your board meeting.
Okay.
Nothing, to report significant. No, that's it.
okay,
Yeah, all's quiet.
very good, thanks. Good meeting. Return.
Yeah,
Covered a lot of ground this time.
Yes.
it's gonna be a busy next couple of months, it's good.
Yeah.
Good to